सुन रहे हैं रेडियो AMITY 107.8 FM और मैं हूँ आपकी आरजे शिखा और आपको जगाने भगाने दौड़ाने के लिए अपना ये स्पेशल शो लेकर के आ गई हूँ. Just stay tuned. Welcome to AMITY Universe, home to AMITY School of Communication, a premier communication institute. AMITY School of Communication offers professional courses at undergraduate and postgraduate levels, training over 1,800 students in the field of media education. A unique institution which lays the highest importance on providing a modern and sophisticated learning milieu united with rich Indian heritage and value system. The guiding principle of AMITY Universe is where modernity blends with tradition. The neo-leadership of the Indian media industry is groomed with an amalgamated approach of Western educational practices in a high-tech campus with indigenous traditions.
I'm Mosh Srivastav, student at AMITY School of Communication. The best thing about AMITY School of Communication is that it provides so many opportunities to work on live projects. I have worked with the biggest projects such as Kala Utsav. I have also been hosting so many shows at Radio AMITY 107.8 FM.
Spearheaded by Professor Colonel R.K. Dargan for almost a decade, AMITY School of Communication has been ranked among the top institutes of the country.
As one of the best media schools in the country, incidentally, we have been ranked in the top 4 by very prominent surveys carried out by top institutions. It's not because we have got a good infrastructure, it also includes our faculty. We've got a very strong faculty who are both not only carrying with them industry experience, but also as well as top in academics. The thrust of our teaching is based on 3 principles that we follow. We give value-driven education. We blend modernity with tradition. We lay a lot of emphasis on hands-on training. In AMITY School of Communication, we nurture talent, and that is our motto. When you go out from here, you still will be a part of us as our alumni, and we build lifelong associations. Thank you so much, and welcome to the new world of mass communication.
I would now like to introduce our first keynote speaker, Professor Dr. Sundeepmuppidi. He is Director of Special Programs at Eastern Connecticut State University and a tenured Professor of Communication at the University of Hartford, USA. He served as Secretary General of AMITY, Singapore from 2010 to mid-2012. He served as the Editor-in-Chief of the Asia Pacific Media Educator and Media Asia Journals, in addition to serving as an Associate Director of the Asian Journal of Communication and as an editorial board member for several other journals in the discipline. He has over 25 plus years of research, filmmaking, teaching, and administrative experience globally. His research interests are in international communication, emerging media studies, and communication for social change and empowerment. He earned a doctorate in mass communication from Bowling Green State University under the guidance of eminent development communication scholar Dr. Srinivas Malkote. He is also a 2017-18 fellow of American Council of Education. He has published, co-authored, edited over 50 plus books, chapters, referred journals, and other articles, created numerous media productions, and given over 100 plus referred conference presentations, and has been invited to talks. I welcome you, sir, to AMITY School of Communication. I would now request you to address the gathering.
Thank you to Dr. Jolly and Dr. Shrinkala and all the organizers for having me address you, even though it's about 1 a.m. I was very happy to see this conference because I think this is very, very essential in the current trend that's happening in India with all the communication schools and the communication activities that are happening. So capacity building for the new generation is extremely important. So Dr. Jolly forwarded me the topics of all the different papers that are being presented. And I was simply amazed at the breadth of topics that are being presented at this two-day conference. So congratulations on a great event. Coming to my talk, it didn't help that Dr. Jolly said, talk on whatever you want, you want to address the students on, and but keep it to the conference theme, which is communication trends and practices in the digital era. What makes it difficult for me is I am a producer. I do a lot of media productions. I teach multimedia and the web kind of thing. I teach emerging media. And I also teach research methods and theory. When I was thinking about what do I talk about, and I broadly tried to frame it as an introduction to the conference, because Saif is talking after me, and I know he's an expert on digital culture, and I wanted to tread very softly and not get into digital culture as much, right? So I was looking at what the conference theme is, and in terms of the conference theme, it aims to investigate, examine, and probe the recent trends. But the objectives were basically building a research culture and environment among the student community. I mean, you have the other things: creating, encouraging, and promoting. So my keynote is focused more around the building part, building a research culture and environment, and sort of talking to the young scholars about how to sort of interpret or deconstruct or look at the kind of world we are in now, not just in India, but all around the world, and what kind of capacity can each of you build. I know all of you are excited about the podcasting and the branding and the streaming and the kind of cool toys that you see with the video gaming and augmented reality and the metaverse kinds of things. But beyond that, those are things that are very glamorous, that look very glamorous, but what it comes with for you as media professionals is the need to develop a critical literacy around how to handle those things, right? I mean, you could be an advertising professional, you could be the best PR person around, you could be the best producer or the best web content developer or the best RJ or anything that you want to be. You can be really good at it, and this is really an exciting time to be in this field. But you would be much better if you had the also the critical media literacy skills that make you really a very good professional around the whole thing, right? So in terms of the overview of my talk, and I wasn't sure how much time I have to talk. Being a professor, I take 3-hour classes, so I'm not going to bore you with 3 hours. I'll probably keep it to about 15-20 minutes, give you an overview, and then open it up for questions, because that's what I enjoy the most, the interaction. So I'll give you an overview. We can come back to the slides. I have more slides than I need. But this is what I frame my talk around, right? Briefly talk about the context, but in terms of communication, sort of give you the tools or the frameworks to how to interpret the world around you, right? I mean, like in terms of the theory, like how do you talk about the emerging trends? How do you interpret the emerging trends? What kind of research understanding would you need for that, right? The culture and the digital lifestyle, probably Saif can, I'm already assuming that he's going to talk about digital culture, but I'll give you an overview and then leave it to him. But pretty much end with an example of the trends and practices from a political economy perspective. That's something I do in terms of my theoretical writing. I do a lot of political economy stuff. So from a political economy lens, what are the kinds of issues that I see in the digital world. So the contextual framework around you, like I'm sure, like I see, you also have seen the networks around you grow very digital, right? In terms of, I've grown up in a world in India when there was no television. I went to black and white television, went to color television, came to the US, and actually came here before the internet. So none of you, I mean, most of the students I don't think were born in a world that had no internet. So what it gives me is this ability to sort of compare and contrast how communication has evolved. So if you look at the current world in terms of the diffusion of the cloud, in terms of the streaming, in terms of all the kind of e-commerce networks around you, the digital diffusion of technology, the broadband kind of stuff, the cable kind of stuff, OTT platforms, and all the video gaming and PUBG, what has happened is that there's a sort of lifestyle and behavioral change that's happening in society, or has already happened. And increasingly, that has been the result of digital diffusion, the proliferation of technology, the sort of intensification of networks, personal networks, business networks, all kinds of networks, and the associated policy shift that has happened around that. And these are all things that we can talk for hours. So I'm just introducing the concepts, and then we can get into it based on the questions, right? So if you're looking at all the day-to-day lifestyles, the networks, a good example is how with the recent pandemic, the COVID pandemic, everyone shifted onto Zoom, and Zoom has become like, in earlier days, Xerox used to be that kind of word. Photocopying was a synonym for, or Xerox was a synonym for photocopying. Now, even if you're using any other conferencing software, the typical word you use is let's Zoom or let's Skype kind of thing, right? So in terms of our work culture, in terms of our personal interactions, behaviors, everything, there has been a shift. There has been a shift to the online, to the digital. But what probably has been under the radar is all the kinds of issues that it comes with, all the kinds of behavioral modifications, all the kinds of people that get left out, all the kinds of issues from a DEI perspective and justice access perspective kind of things. And each of this is a conference paper in itself. Each of this is a book in itself. How do you look for this? How do you really interpret this world around you in terms of as a communication professional? I know most of you probably are looking to be media professionals in the industry, but I think this is important even if you're not going to get into theory, even if you're not getting into writing scholarly papers. This is what gives you the critical literacy in terms of when I see my mom and my family watching a lot of television serials, right? I mean, like, which is not a habit before. And like, so, or when I'm using WhatsApp or people are forwarding on WhatsApp a lot of kinds of things that, I mean, make me cringe because a lot of people don't even verify the authenticity of messages or whatever, like any kind of behavior, or the kind of PUBG, the playing that has spread all over the world, mostly in Asia, but all over the world. What is it doing? Like, what are the patterns that emerge from that? Like, as a media professional, what do you see in terms of the social structure, the society, the behaviors? As a media professional, that is where your expertise comes in. From an ordinary viewer, from an ordinary person who's indulging in that behavior, you are sort of removed from that and have the ability to interpret that. And then there are all kinds of continuum that you can look at it from an individual, collective kind of continuum, from a technocentric to a sociocentric kind of perspective, right? But it helps you identify what are the forces that are responsible for this behavior, right? And all kinds of things, right? So when I talk about examples, you'll understand it probably much better. But based on that, you construct formal propositions or rules that predict these events, right? If a lot of people are watching network television or watching OTT kinds of platforms, then what is it doing to the economics of the whole industry, right? When I was doing productions in India, Doordarshan was the main network, was probably the only network, yeah. And you had to run through a lot of bureaucracy to even get through a 13 episode serial. Right? And the kind of money that was associated with it was peanuts. Compare that to now, when the money you get for making one episode for Amazon or even any local kind of web OTT company is probably much more than what we used to get paid for probably 20 episodes. So the kind of production values that have changed, the kind of demand that economics sort of controls, all those are things that you need to have an understanding about, right? And how it impacts the kind of distribution network, the kind of ideas, the rise of independent television, the rise of personal branding. Each of you needs to develop your own personal brand in this day and age. And that's what I get my students to do now. The first thing they do is work on what is their personal brand. And it's like you are the product now. And in terms of selling yourself, in a literal, not in a literal sense, but in a metaphorical sense, how would you sort of build your profile? How would you sort of build your brand? All those things become important in today's world. Try to understand different specific media for its own characteristics. This is how you would look at it, right? Any new media that comes in, it starts with interest in the new medium itself, and then who are the users, what are the users it's getting into, what are the effects, and how the medium can be improved. So if you're looking at video gaming, or if you're looking at the metaverse, one of the new courses that I'm teaching for next year is on the metaverse, right? It's the term became popular once Facebook changed its name to Meta, but there is a whole culture that's associated with online identities and avatars and all that kind of thing. So it spawns a new kind of lifestyle, it spawns a new kind of behavior, it spawns new kinds of questions on what are the intended and unintended consequences of that effect. Again, you couch that in the trends in popular culture, in public opinion, and how it influences attitudes and perceptions. If you're in the industry, then it's about all the profitable channels or not. If you are not, if you are more in a kind of a moral kind of framework, then it's about the whole thing about moral decay it's causing and all kinds of things. In terms of studying communication in the digital era, the model is the same, right? You're looking at the policy process, SMCR kind of thing, and the effects. But the central question comes back to, what does this do to us? Whatever kind of question you take, whatever kind of step you are sort of, whichever sphere you're situating yourself in to understand the emerging trends in the digital world, the central question is this: what does this do to us, or to your friends, or to society around us? And in terms of that, you go back to the framework that you apply to it. Are you looking at it from a sociological perspective, or a political science perspective, or a psychological perspective? And I try to put everything together in one picture, but again, this is a semester-long class. This one picture. So you can situate yourself on any of these points and talk about the impact that this digital world is can be interpreted through ideological or historical or politico-economic or socio-cultural, all the policy process effects and the whole communication cycle kind of thing. these are all the themes and issues that can come up. And you could look at any of these things and understand what are the emerging trends in the digital world. Governance or technology or identity or representation or culture or meaning or power, the role of power and causation and determination, all kinds of things. So a quick example is like, if you're looking at mobile use or whatever, right, or social media, there's a quick question just to give you an example. Like if you're studying message and media related behavior in the digital age, then a simple question can be, do women self-disclose more private information than men on social media? Or the other way around, it could be men disclosing more private information on social media than, and it doesn't even need to be social media. It could be Twitter, it could be LinkedIn, it could be Facebook, it could be Insta, whatever, like the whole social influencer kind of thing. I'm just giving you an example, but I'll quickly get to the last slide and then I'll open it up for questions. From a political economy lens, if you are trying to understand the emerging trends in the digital world, primarily, I would think commodification of data, and then the kind of this is a great book. I think it's if you are interested in the digital world and understanding it, this is a great book that all of you should be reading, The Age of Surveillance Capitalism, because it talks about this kind of thing. It talks about what does the concentration of wealth, knowledge, and power in this day and age, like the Googles and the Facebooks and the Microsofts and all, what is it doing to us as a society, the surveillance society that's happening? I'll stop there because I can, as I said, I can talk on each of them, and then we'll open it up for questions because that's what I really love to do.
Thank you, Professor Muppidi. We will proceed for the question and answer after we've also heard Professor Saif Shaheen. Thank you so much.
That actually makes sense.
Yes, it was indeed an enlightening, enriching session, and I'm sure students have noted down the pointers and they'll be ready with the questions.